Hello, my noble band of outlaws. Outlaw Samurai coming at you live with episode 9 of the Outlaw Samurai Show. I got the JBL playing Danny Fan Snaps in the background. But without further ado, don'ts and probably shouldn't, let's get started. I know that my live stream is a day late. I had some prior engagements yesterday with Outlaw Night. But I am here, I am ready, and I have an interesting but strangely controversial subject to speak about today. And yes, this is a red Solo cup. I am drinking from the cutlery of my people. Don't know why, but everything just gets easier to drink out of these. Even a red Solo cup. Almost like cola from a red Solo cup. I ain't no pub. You know, when I watch an anime, I watch it dub. But in any case, so the controversial subject I have to talk about today is really just a sword community thing. And that is sword grip length in comparison to blade length. And I know this light is stupid bright, so I'm going to attempt to switch over to the dimmer light and not stab the damn fan with the light, with the other lighting. I honestly don't expect a lot of people to tune in because of the kind of unprofessionalism that I showed, and again, I am sorry for that. But as I stated, I had a prior engagement with Outlaw Night. I lost the sword when I put it down. But yeah. Grip length to sword blade length. Now, this is a controversial subject simply because of the fact that depending on who you are and what sword style you practice and what size of blade you prefer, you're going to have different preferences. Some of you are going to like a longer grip, shorter blade. Some of you are going to like a shorter grip, longer blade. Some of you are going to like a nagamaki kind of thing, where it's the blade grip is similar to blade length, and vice versa. But when it boils down to it, most of your Asiatic sword styles, be them Korean styles, Chinese styles, Japanese jutsu styles, they have a universal grip to blade length ratio, kind of, that a lot of them follow, which is a 27-inch blade and an 11 to 10-inch suka, or grip. And yes, this length of grip facilitates well for control. So a 27-inch blade to a 10 to 11-inch grip, even I find that this is a very well proportioned length, so to speak. But then you have other proportions where, and I have a few of these, the blade is actually longer than the grip should be. And this is my personal opinion, and a lot of other people would either agree or disagree with me, but I feel is in the example of the Kriegsmesser from Cold Steel, that the blade is too long for this 10-inch grip. Alright? I have so much blade pointed out in front of me that because of the short grip, I feel like I am confined to limited range of movement. And yes, this is technically a three-handed grip. You could get three hands on this, and I am choking all the way down, but I still feel confined. If this grip was about maybe yay longer, just another 3 inches of grip, and I wouldn't have such an issue. I feel very boxed into this kind of compact grip that just doesn't suit me well. On top of the Quillians. Now, I have said in the past that if I was in a judicial duel, I would use this Kriegsmesser, and that's simply because it's the only sword I have that is light enough and long enough that I have reach, but I can go full one-handed use if I had to. And that's really the only main reason why I would use this Kriegsmesser in any kind of judicial duel, is because I do have this is the only sword I have that facilitates full one-handed use to me, but with two-handed sword length distance. So, moving on, I know that this doesn't sound like a big deal. It more or less sounds like I'm just bitching. But keep in mind that I have a hard time explaining my viewpoints. Now, I do have one example of a sword that has a perfect grip to blade length ratio, in my opinion, and that is the Winter Sun from Dragon King. This has a 31-inch blade and a 12-inch grip. And as you can see, I am much more nimble with this sword because it is a longer grip. Longer grips don't just generate more power in a cut, they also make maneuvering the blade easier. Now, in some fencing styles, you'll be taught the compacted grip, as I'd like to call it. But in others, a lot of the time, grip length is usually measured to be about a quarter of the blade length. So with this being a 31-inch blade, that would put the grip somewhere around 11.5 to 10.5 inches. The fact that Dragon King decided to round that up to a full 12-inch grip just means that this has a perfect blade to grip ratio for me and a lot of other people of my larger stature. And that's another thing that I should mention before I continue, is that a lot of times, especially with us Western practitioners of the sword, what would be the standard size of katana for the average Japanese practitioner or Asiatic practitioner, considering they are usually around 6 to a foot short, usually they're around 6 to 12 inches shorter than us, and that translates to shorter legs, shorter arms, and shorter draw spans. But because of these differences, we require two different sizes of swords. A 31-inch nagasa, or blade length, for a Western practitioner is completely within the realms of usability, whereas this is still in the realm of usability. It's just that because of our generally larger stature, most guys around my height and build would find this kind of compactful. Now, to me, this isn't that bad because I'm so used to. My first sword was about this size. I don't find this style of grip restricting because of two things. One, if we compare the Kriegsmesser to this one, yeah, this grip is about a half an inch longer. And half an inch can be extremely important with sword dynamics. A half an inch of more blade or more grip or less grip can completely throw off the balance. And because of that, you need to be very careful when choosing the right size sword for your practice. Now, again, I know I'm rambling, but I have a very hard time thinking of coherent thoughts. So just kind of work with me a little bit here. All right, so as I was saying before, the standard size for the Japanese practitioner or the Asiatic practitioner versus I would call the standard size for the Western practitioner. If we take a look at these two swords, you'll note that there really isn't much difference. There's only about maybe an inch and a half more grip on the Winter Sun and maybe 2.5 inches of more, 2.5 inch more of blade on the Winter Sun. But yet, if I'm being truthful with you, while I don't find that the standard size katana is as restricting as the Kriegsmesser in terms of the grip, I just feel like this is too short for me to effectively use in a fight. Like I drew the short straw, as it was. Whereas with the, yeah, I know this has a rattle in it now. I fixed the bent Suba and now it's loose. So Bird, I may have to use some of your rubber shim ideas. But yeah, this feels much better to me. This feels like it's a proper length for me to fight with if I had to. So there's that. Now, I've talked about the difference between the compact grip, the standard size katana for Japanese practitioner, and what I would consider a standard for an American Western practitioner. But I do have some examples of a couple of outliers in this kind of grip length discussion. The biggest outlier here is my Hanwei Raptor Unokubizukuri katana with a 13-inch Suba and about 28-inch Nagasa, or blade length. Now, I know what you're thinking. Yes, Outlaw, you've talked about the Hanwei Raptor and you've talked about the Warrior Ode to Death, okay? But I'm not talking about how the Raptor cuts. I'm talking about how it functions in my hand. And while I do have great control over the Raptor, it actually suffers from the same problem as the standard length katana, and by the way, this is the Sokochikara Scorn katana, it suffers from the same problem of it feels too short in my hand. But there's a major difference here. Can you spot the difference between these two blades? And never mind the fact that one's a shinogi and one's an unakubi zukuri. As we can see, not much difference in blade length. Maybe about an inch to an inch and a quarter. What there is a major difference in, don't stab my ceiling, is the grip length. There's a good extra, I want to say, 1 3/4 inches to almost 2 inches more of grip length on this than on the Scorn. And because of this extra long grip, you have more control over the sword, yes. But putting such a long grip on a short blade like this, while you gain control, you can generally lose some of the power and authority in the cut. And I know the Unakubi Zukuri is meant for trick cutting. It's meant to reduce drag. It's meant to be a lighter blade all in all in your hand. But just hear me out here. Even with this Unakubi Zukuri, Samurai Bird, you were talking, not necessarily complaining, but you were talking about last Samurai Night Live about how your Unakubi Zukuri from Cloudhammer was too top heavy. I would love to see that sword and compare it to the Raptor, because I like heavy swords, and I'm not going to lie, heavy swords feel right in my hand. I can use light swords, it's just, there's something that's just satisfactory about a good, hefty sword that just screams to my inner swordsman. Hence why the other example I have is my favorite. But I digress. I honestly feel like the Hanwei Raptor Unakubi Zukuri is maybe more leaning towards a shorter Nagamaki. I feel like this sword is kind of like a shrunken down version of a Nagamaki. Just simply because of the fact that you have such a long grip, but a relatively short blade in terms of swords. Slightly above average at a 28-inch and a quarter Nagasa, but still. This 13-inch grip, I feel like, should be more or less on a sword like the Kriegsmesser or the Winter Sun. And just for comparison, Adam Whistler, dude, that haircut is super sick. Good call on the buzz, man. Thank you, Adam. But as I was saying, I'm comparing grip lengths, Adam, so if you want to go back and hear my ramblings for the last 18 minutes, you can. But as I was saying, the Raptor and the Dragon King almost have equal length of grip. The Raptor being actually just a hair longer than the Winter Sun. However, like I said, this is basically just a shrunken down Nagamaki to me because of the length of grip to a 13-inch grip to a 28-inch blade. Now, as I mentioned before, there was one other outlier, and it's my favorite sword. And anyone who's been a long-time viewer of this channel will know this is probably the single most documented sword on the channel. And at this point, it should pretty much become the channel's official sword, the Warrior O Katana from Cold Steel. Now, why is this my favorite sword? Well, simply because it's big, it's heavy, and I love it. But what I was saying about it being an outlier to all of these is that even though it has the, I believe, shortest grip length of all these other swords, at just shy of 12 and a half inches with the Kashira. With the Kashira, it's more like 11 inches without. And Adam, if you didn't know, the Kashira is this little end bit right here. Hey, Gargoyle, thanks for showing up, my brother. I was just mentioning the controversialness of length of grip to length of sword blade. I didn't know. Well, you learned something new, Adam. The end bit here is called a Kashira. And the reason why I said that the Warrior O is an outlier to all these other swords is that despite the fact it has the shortest grip and the longest blade, I can maneuver this so effortlessly to the point where I won't feel compacted like I did with the Kriegsmesser. Yeah. So, for you just tuning in, Gargoyle, I was telling everyone that the Kriegsmesser, at least this cold steel version, has too short of a grip for my liking. I feel like I'm compact in what I can do versus what I could do with a similarly length grip on the scored katana. And I don't know if it's just the quillons that make it that way or it's the actual grip itself, but I feel like the standard Japanese practitioner's length of a 27-inch blade and a 10-inch suka, while it doesn't make me feel compacted, it feels too short in overall blade presence that's in front of me that I would feel comfortable fighting with a blade of this length if I had to. What I would view as the Western standard would be the 31-inch Nagasa with a 12-inch grip. Because this just flows so much smoother in my hand. And yes, this has a rattle. I fixed the bend in the Suba that was making me think that the blade was bent. And now, as a Suba, I'm going to have to try Bird's rubber trick. There were two outliers to my ramblings thus far. Kind of giving you the abridged version now that I've rambled it all out and got everything in my head focused. That would be the Raptor and the Cold Steel, which I said that the Hanwei Raptor Unokubi Sakuri Katana, in my opinion, is just a shrunken down version of a Nagamaki. Because you have a 13-inch suka and a 28-inch blade. And while that does give you a lot of control over the sword, it sacrifices some of the reach and power that you could still get out of the Unokubi Sakuri geometry because of the way it's forged and the way it's ground. You could easily add another 6, 7, 8, even maybe 10 inches of blade to this, and it would still be light and nimble, but feel more like it would have a grip length to match the blade. Hi, Outlaw, Gargoyles, Blades. Hey, Armored Sweatpants. I think is this the first time you've tuned in, Sweatpants? Or have you not, or have you always missed my other live streams? I couldn't do the live stream yesterday because I had a prior engagement with Outlaw Night. We were, just hanging around, doing guy shit, playing video games, getting sick off of Pepsi and Dr. Pepper, eating chimichangas, guy stuff. But yeah, what do you guys think, Adam, Gargoyle, Armored Sweatpants, of me basically comparing the Hanwei Raptor to a shrunken down Nagamaki? Cool haircut, first one I've caught. Then I welcome you to your first episode of the Outlaw Samurai Show. One of these days we're going to have either Gargoyle or Bird guest star if I could ever figure out how the hell to send them the link. Like, if you guys want, send me your if you guys have Facebook, send me your things on Google Mail and I'll send them via Messenger. That seems to work well. But yeah. What do y'all think of basically a slimmed down, shrunken Nagamaki as a comparison for the Raptor? Now, I've been talking about grip length, and I feel like I'll readdress the Warrior O, the biggest outlier here. I just had the damn tape measure and I lost it. The Warrior O has a staggering from tip to Mumachi. Okay, come on. Yes, there we go. 34 3/4 inch blade. How's it going? All right. So, Gargoyle saying hi to Armor. Okay. As I said, this is a 34 1/4 inch blade on a 12-inch grip with Kasha, which I guess follows the standard 1/4 of blade length. I have 2 Hanweis. I've never felt that, but that's just me. I mean, I can't pull one up, but maybe I can. Had Daddy Fan Snaps playing in the background before I started the live stream. Let's see here. Alright. No, that's not it. So, as we see here, not bad for Wisconsin Gargoyle. It could work for a Nagamaki, just need the handle 20 to 30 inches long. As we see here, this is a Nagamaki. And this damn mirror effect is going to drive me up the fucking wall. But see, the reason I made the comparison is because this is just a Nagamaki that was shrunk down to regular sword size, in my opinion, because of how it handles. It's not literally a Nagamaki, but still. But the reason I was mentioning the cold steel is it follows an old swords smith's measuring device. And what I mean by that is, generally speaking, if you have a 4-foot sword, you would have the grip being the total length of 1/4 the blade length. So a 36-inch sword, a 48-inch sword overall would have a 12-inch blade and a 36-inch grip. This follows that old style of measurements. It's more of a Nodachi shortened down. I can agree with that. Wait, are you talking about the Raptor or the Cold Steel? Because this is more of like an Otachi kind of thing. But in any case, even though that I wish the grip would be longer, I've had no trouble swinging this around, cutting with it, even drawing it from the scabbard and manipulating it, despite the short grip. And this is what I meant by the outlier of this bunch. Oh, the one in your hands. This is the Warrior O Katana gargoyle. This is the Hanwei. And now that you mention it, it does kind of resemble a shortened down Nodachi. Though I still think it's more like a Handachi or Tachi, but I can also see your view. So, while we are here, I have two things that you all are going to get a sneak peek preview of. First of all, you may not have been wondering what is in the black tote behind me. That thing is huge. I know, Adam. One of these days I'm going to get a scale and I'm going to measure all these swords' total weights. That includes the weight of the scabbard. But you may also be wondering, what's in the black tote? Something very special is in the black tote. What's in the black tote is yet to be soaked poor man's tatami rolls. Alright? By the way, Murasami T10 blades are nice. I really need to look into those. I saw one on Amazon that I've been on the fence about, but I've been kind of saving my money lately. Yes, but these are unsoaken poor man's tatami rolls that I made from old, out-of-date Menards ads that my manager gave me a whole box of. And I still haven't made them all yet. This was my first attempt, so it's kind of small before I got my technique down. This one I just kind of started rolling just started rolling. And this one's kind of a medium. But there is something special about this one, and that is it's thicker in the core than it is on the ends, because I basically put one in the center, then on either side I put another ad so that they joined in the center of the bottom one, put a top, and I just kind of followed that pattern and rolled it up. So I'm going to be curious to see how this cuts. That's the first little surprise I have. I'm planning on putting these to soak sometime tomorrow night once I get off from work. That's the first little sneak preview. The second sneak preview is that I have made two videos as of late. One video showing you how to suspend your sword like a tachi, and the other one, and I still have it in the mount, how to suspend your sword like a shingunto for under $5. That's right. You can have tachi sword for less than $5. And the way you do this is quite simple. You go to your local Menards. Again, I'm repping my new place of employment. And you get these work belt straps that are generally used to hold hand tools and such in. But instead of hand tools, you simply just slip them onto your saya. And I use the paracord Sageo that I made for this to keep it in place. You place it on here underneath the koigata. And then, simply by tying it on, you will have yourself a sword that you can use, draw, and carry just like a shingunto. Now, in my videos that I made of this, there were a few pros and or cons that I mentioned. All right, just making sure I'm all kept up on comments. The pros and cons of which that I mentioned in the Tachi video is that yes, while the sword does not bounce around as much as it does in the Shingunto mounting, it does, however, restrict drawing quickly from the sheath. And that's because in the Tachi mounting, the blade scrapes more on the saya than it does in the Shingunto mounting position. And we can thank two big contributing factors to me making these videos. One was our Tachi discussion on the last Samurai Night Live. And Michael Riezzo, hope I pronounced his last name correctly, recently uploaded a video about the Shingunto, how they were worn and drawing them and such, which gave me the idea today. So I dismantled the Tachi mounting system and put the O-Katana in the Shingunto mounting system. Now, in the videos I've made, I demonstrated that you can draw cut from both of these mounts. It's just that the Shingunto mount is more coordinated to draw and cut far easier than the Tachi mount. And you don't rub or scrape your blade on the inside of the saya nearly as much. There are also two other pros to this style of mounting. One is that you can comfortably draw your longer blades much easier, and Michael Renzo goes into detail about this, than if you were to wear them on your hip. This rubs me wrong. Shouldn't the spin test on the inner saya, especially when drawing that a basic safety protocol? This rubs me wrong. Shouldn't the spin rest on the inner saya? I'm not entirely sure what you mean, Armored Sweatpants. What spin are you talking about? Oh, spine. Yes and no, because have you ever heard of a Shingunto Armored Sweatpants before I go into a bit of a rant here? If not, the Shingunto were the official Japanese officer swords of World War II, and they were a kind of hybrid between Western sabers and Japanese katana and tachi. They had tachi fittings, but they were worn like Western sabers of the 18th century via a hanging system with the edge facing downwards. Generally, you would be correct, as the spine of the blade would be resting downwards, but with Shingunto and Tachi, the blade rests with edge facing down. And actually, with the way I have this set up, if I wanted to, I could still draw it like a regular katana and even perform Noto if I wanted to. It's just, it draws much faster and easier in a Shingunto mounting system than it did with the regular one. Yes, Armor, the spine should run on the inside. That's why Tachi had metal fittings to stop it from cutting the saya. Oh, okay. Thanks, Gargoyle. So you were concerned about the saya splitting. I honestly don't have any metal fittings on this except for what's on the end. Yes, I would like one before I die, but my sword is not Shingunto. Shingunto had a steel saya, more protection. Yes, Shingunto did have steel sayas, and you guys make valid, excellent points. But this is more along the lines of if you want to experiment with the swords you already have, if they are of a length that could be kind of considered Tachi or Shingunto, this is more just like a cheap version of kind of giving you the experience of having and using a Tachi style mounting system or a Shingunto style mounting system. Uh, but in any case, there are two cons that I have found when using the sword like this. Shinguntos have the souls of dead soldiers in them. No matter how good they're for me, it's a hard pass. Hey, Tempest, glad you could make it, brother. LOL, Mr. Wizard. Alright. Well, Tempest, you missed the earlier discussion about sword length and sword grip, which was kind of the controversial thing I started with. But yeah, the two cons I found is that when walking with this in Shingunto mount style, in a Shingunto mounting style, is that it likes to trip me up. It will either try to rest on my foot or go in between my legs. Even when I do it like period officers of the time and have the suka pointing this way, it will still try to go in between my legs and trip me up. So I kind of have to keep a hand on this at all times. But yeah, what do you all think of my kind of experiment of turning a basically an old Tachi, which is a transitional sword between Tachi and Nodachi, into a Tachi fitting or a Shingunto fitting style? Whilst I just pour RC Cola into a red Solo cup because I'm a sophisticated redneck. And there's my barbarian roots. I'll just use my Obi belt. Teach their own, Gargoyle. I just thought this would be, kind of a fun little experiment for us sword guys to try. Personally, I actually find that I like this in a Shingunto style mount more than I do the traditional. Cute, but not with a bamboo saya, but that's just me. Well, this isn't bamboo armored sweatpants. It's technically reinforced with plastic wood. And a shit ton of I can draw quicker with an Obi belt. Again, I'm not doubting that, Gargoyle. I've seen you cut. So, this thing is also about 5 pounds of steel that I'm drawing out. But me personally, I just find it more comfortable in this Shingunto style mounting. Sword is a sword. Sword is a sword. It's how you use that counts. Any mount is cool if you use it right. Yeah, valid points, Tempest. The other con about the way I have this rigged is that it likes to pull downwards. As in, it likes to want to slide in a lower position than when I have the knot. The knot is like right here, and the sword wants to slide down to about here. But that's pretty much the weight. When I pull it out, it no longer wants to slide. Of course, now the saya has become a lot more floppy. So, There's that. Where the hell did the knot go? I'm sorry that I can't do a cutting session right now. I neglected to buy pool noodles, and right now in Indiana, it's decided to go back to like 60 degrees during the day and like 30 at night. So there's that. But in any case, put a shoulder harness on it to help with the weight. Thanks, Gargoyle. I was actually starting to think that I didn't actually think of the shoulder harness myself. I was going to do something like with medieval swords where it has a second hanger and tie it to the back of my belt. Or put it on an actual belt and not braided paracord. But with that in mind, are there any questions you noble outlaws have for me regarding swords and or anime in general? Because if not, I'm going to mention one thing real quick about this Kriegsmesser. I hate the quillons. Right? I hate the fact that these quillons jut out so far. Needs more likes. What needs more likes, Tempest? This video? Hell, I'd be grateful if even just one of you liked it. That's more than enough for me. But in any case, the reason I hate these quillons is because they like to dig into my arm. I'm so used to being able to just freely swing a sword around and flourish and not have to worry about shit deciding it wants to stab my arm. Thank you, Tempest. Like, oh, Outlaw's going to do something. Ah! You son of a bitch. Like, I swear this sword has it out for me. Not to say that I don't like quillons on swords, but I like the quillons to be upswept or in an S shape. I feel like an S shape would have been much better for this sword because the one quillon would be forming a knuckle bow, and then you'd have another quillon that kind of would act like the tongue of a sigh. I gave you a like, mister. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Armored Sweatpants. I'll say, you guys don't have to like the video if you don't want to. I know there's probably a lot better things you could be doing than watching me talk like an idiot, but that's probably my low self-esteem kicking in. But in any case, moving on. When I'm not trying to spin the sword around and doing these very flat movements, the quillons don't bother me. It's only when I try to do shit like this. When the quillons protect your hand, you'll be much more appreciative of them. True that, Tempest. And while this does offer the most hand protection out of all my swords, I still want the quillons to be swept down and swept up in an S shape. Kind of like a Witcher sword. Which begs an interesting question. I've been really into playing The Witcher lately, and there's a sword in The Witcher that looks like this messer, but it's clearly a falchion, but still, that I have equipped to my Geralt right now. Which of the Witcher swords would you noble ones choose? Tempest, this probably really doesn't. Self-deprecating humility. I like it. Thank you, Armored Sweatpants. if you can't even laugh at your own stupidity and look at yourself in the mirror and say, "You ugly bastard, I love you," there's something wrong. Okay? I get up every morning. I was like, "You ugly, handsome son of a bitch, I love you." Thank you, Outlaw. No, you thank you, Outlaw. Why are we talking to ourselves? I don't know. There's just my split personalities. Pay no attention to the other outlaws. I think he was being sarcastic. I like it. But in any case, what was I saying? In any case, which swords would you guys choose? Tempest, I really don't think you would have much of a opinion considering the fact that any sword you pick up, you're swinging like you've been swinging, like you basically cut your teeth on it. Like Tempest, like we just see Tempest baby photos. He had a Morningstar mace rattle and a teething ring that looked like, and a teething ring that came off of a Renaissance era sword. What's the shocked emoji for, Armored Sweatpants? No, I'm serious. Oh boy, Tempest, okay. He's 3 months old. Google guy got teething on a damn long sword. All right. I bet we see his baby pictures. He's got the Morningstar rattle and a warhammer, like a foam warhammer for putting the square brick in the round hole. Wield all swords, master all swords. True, Tempest, but I'm saying, like, which of the Witcher swords would you all choose? Me personally, I'm going with the Falchion one just because I like it. Right? It's the closest thing in The Witcher I'm going to get to a katana, so of course I'm going to use it. Right? I was going to say, I think we can obviously agree that Gargoyle would take the black sword with like the wolf, with like the twin wolf heads. I feel like that's what he would use because that's like the most heavy metal of the bunch. Tempest would take like the one with the round pommel, with the wheel pommel, and the copper wire wrap that we see Man at Arms on AMW make. This, I wouldn't even take the silver sword because I haven't found a single-edged silver sword yet. I'm going to stick with the metal sword that's basically a falchion. Because I'd actually be able to use that. The silver sword has as long as it's not made of actual silver. No, I believe it was 2 or 3 live streams ago I was explaining to Gargoyle that, because I think he misunderstood what I said too, Tempest. It's not an actual sword made of silver. What the Witchers do in the game, Man at Arms is awesome. I agree, Tempest. But what the Witchers do in the video game and in the lore is all their swords are steel. They have steel swords, but the silver swords are inlaid with silver, basically. I never watched The Witcher TV. Sucks these days, i.e. Rings of Power. No, Armored Sweatpants, what I'm talking about is The Witcher video games, not The Witcher series from Netflix. But in The Witcher lore, it's basically like if you ever watched a video of them nickel plating like chrome auto part. No argument there, Mr. Wizard. Again, I haven't watched either. Okay, I'm the OG. I want Lord of the Rings, not Rings of Power. Okay, give me Gandalf. Give me my Frodo Baggins. Give me Bilbo. Give me Thorin Oakenshield. Swinging Orcris and splitting orc skulls any day. Alright? One does not simply walk into Mordor. And can we just agree that Gimli from Lord of the Rings is best dwarf? Okay? Thorin is a close second after watching Lord of the Rings, but Gimli is best dwarf to me. Alright? Gandalf rules, lol. Hey, I'm not saying he don't. He bitch slapped Saruman out of the damn tower. But yeah. In the Witcher lore, what they do is basically they basically laminate silver onto the actual flat of the blade itself. So the edge would be steel, and this whole flat would have a thin layer of silver on it, Tempest. That when it cuts into a monster, the silver stops the monster from healing and inflicts more damage. That's what I'm saying by a silver sword. Wizards are the best. Dwarf! Okay? I'm not doubting Gandalf, but if I was transported into the Lord of the Rings universe, I'd want to be a dwarf. A dwarf with gigantism. I'd be a 6-foot tall dwarf. Alright? I'd be wielding a dwarvish sword in the shape of an elvish blade. It'd basically be an elvish blade with a dwarf crossguard. Dwarf! We're just going to have a rage fit over this. Aren't we? Ha! Mine has more exclamation points. I win. Dwarf is best. I'm not saying again. Honestly, he's also one of the few left. It was really sad, really realizing that all the dwarves you meet in The Hobbit, save for one, is dead by the Fellowship of the Ring. Yeah, I kind of... Was I the only one rooting for... I think it was Killy that had the crush on the elf girl. Was I really the only one rooting for that? Like, we would have got to see a dwarf, half dwarf, half elf in fiction. A dwarf. Give me the dwarf. But yeah. One of my favorite quotes is like, when they're at the Battle of Elm's Keep, and Gimli and Legolas have that competition, and he's like, I won't be outdone by no pointy ear. And he just axes the dude in the nuts. I'm like, oh, Gimli, why? Everyone had a crush on her. Yeah, true. Lord of the Rings is so sick, man. Really feel for the poor tree guy that loses all his tree friends. I want to say, you would think that the tree people would have tried to stop Saruman earlier, honestly, because he was cutting down all their brethren left and right. At what point did the trees just say, we're going to fall down and die now? Well, it just seems logically if the tree people were alive and they were pretty much the majority of that forest, they would have taken up trunks being the pun here, trunks and rocks against Saruman long before that. Have you seen dwarf women? Hey, I said I want to be a dwarf. I never said I wanted to date dwarf women, okay? There is a difference. All right? A woman should not have a beard. All right? I was raised old school. All right? To me, the perfect girl would be someone who would not betray me, not lie to me, not cheat on me, and at least make me dinner when I come home, but can also swing a sword as well as she can swing a knife, okay? I want a fighter. I want a girl with a temper. There's no fun unless she has a temper to match. Sauron is a poser. We need Morgoth. Hypocrite. Hey. Even Gimli was trying to get some of that human ass, so I don't want to hear it, okay? He was talking it up with the blonde woman on their way to Helm's Keep. So, yeah. They never made a story for the War of the Wraith. Really mad. I've never actually heard of Morgoth. I've not really gotten really deep into Tolkien's lore as you have, Armored Sweatpants, or Mr. Wizard, whichever you prefer. But yeah, just because I'm a dwarf doesn't necessarily mean I have to date dwarven women, okay? I could have been like Keely and decided I want to date an elf. Or I want to date a human. Alright? There are things called options. Morgoth, Sauron's commander. He needs to stand on a phone book just to reach it. Who? Killy? Who? One of the dwarves or Morgoth? Wait, was Morgoth the Witch King then? If he was the commander, if he was Sauron's commander, does that mean he was the Witch King? Or did he actually command Sauron? Like I said, I haven't gotten really, really deep into the lore of Tolkien. I mainly just know the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit. And won the elevator before he was banished. Okay, I feel like I have been completely outclassed in nerddom here. Okay, y'all's nerd levels are over 9,000. I am surpassed completely here. Anyone see where Gargoyle went? By the way, I ain't heard him chime in for a while. I've read all the books. Morgoth was a ex-god. Okay, Gimli as far as human ass. Oh, you mean Gimli getting that human ass? Okay, oh, I see where we're going with this. But yeah, I respect even that's what wizards do. I'm a nerdaholic. Hey, I love being a nerd too. I'm here just lurking. Okay. Yeah, I've done that for my Outlaw Wiccan a few times. I just ain't heard you join in on the Nerdonomicon, as it was, the discussion of nerddom. But that poses an interesting question. If we could be transported into the Lord of the Rings, what race and or profession would we choose? I mean, Armored Sweatpants, we already know you're going to be a wizard. Tempest, I kind of feel like you'd be an elf, honestly, with how you swing a sword. No fingerlif, no ring sword, and no torcus. Okay, now you're just speaking either dwarvish or elvish, which I don't know. Right? Not much into LOR. Oh, we kind of went on a whole nerd tangent and didn't include gargoyles. Sorry about that, Gargoyle. Going off on a whole nerd tangent. The only dwarvish I know is Ishkachfair and Dwugaldor. Him and all his kin. And that came from Thorin Oakenshield and Gimli. They were second age, weren't they? Dúnedain, descendants of Numorians, also fighter. Would you be a Numorian then, Tempest? Yep, Mr. Wizard. Right. I mean, I still gotta go with dwarf, but with giganticism, so I'm still like 6 foot tall. But I have like the strength and like build and power of a dwarf. And I don't know if this is a already established character, but I kind of came up with my own D&D character that is a dwarf. And I said before, half dwarf, half elf. Dane, that's what Aragon was. Oh, so you'd be like, wait a minute. I thought Aragon was the king. Uh, it's been a minute since I've watched Lord of the Rings. Wasn't he like the king of Midas Keep or something? Yes, that last. That's the last. Okay. So, uh, what a dwarf is a kind of a character I came up with. Dugan is a race of men. Okay. Thank you for clearing that up, Tempest. But the dwarf character I came up with for like a D&D campaign, he'd have all the strengths of both the elvish race and the dwarvish race. Speed, agility, and all that of an elf, strength, brute force, and power of a dwarf, with an elf's longevity. He has to read the books. Now I've seen how thick those books are. It took me 20 years to read those things. Okay, I don't want to be like 60 by the time I find out all of Tolkien's lore. I think I'll stick to the movies. Sorry, Armored. Or I'll just I'll just Google YouTube videos explaining all of Tolkien's races, so that I can just learn the shit without actually having to go through the monotonous process of reading to one chapter, losing my place, and having to start the chapter all over again. But yeah. I have so many books to read already. Just got one on Mongolian warlords. Also, Gargoyle will be going to start reading about Genghis Khan. Numerians are also a race of men, but closer to the Second Age, and they were shown in the very first scene of the Fellowship of the Ring, the big battle. Very cool, Gargoyle Blade. Okay. Also, yeah, I remember that. I just didn't know the name, like the name of their people. They're the ones who fucked up and let Sauron stay alive. So they're the whole reason they had to fight Sauron again, like 1,000 years later. I mean, was I the only one to think that the elf should have just taken the ring? Like, wasn't he like not Andriel? That was the sword's name. Wasn't he like resistant to the ring's power and could throw it into Mordor himself? I can't remember his name. They fled Numeria and founded Elnor and Gondor. Okay. Now the Gondorians. Okay, so now my brain's kind of syncing up here. Thank you, Armored Sweatpants. But yeah, wasn't not Charon? Who was the elf who told Thorin and Gandalf the names of their swords, Glandring and Orcus? If Elrond killed Isildur, it would have caused another war. No, I'm not saying kill Isildur, but thank you, Tempest. If Elrond had just pushed Isildur down, or just took the ring for himself, because I think he was like in close proximity when Isildur cut off Sauron's hand, that he could have taken the ring himself and just thrown it into Mordor and been done with the whole thing. Like the war, like the Fellowship would have never needed to be formed in the first place. Mongolian soldiers wore silk shirts under their armor so they could remove arrows out of them. Huh. Oh yeah, because like silk will go into the wound with the arrow because it's fibrous. He was not letting go of that ring. LOL. He's a virgin, we must be gentle. LOL GB. What do you mean about virgin armored sweatpants? Oh, if you're talking about me, yes, I am still sadly a virgin at 23, but still. What's GB, Tempest? In any case, there's just a few things in Lord of the Rings that just don't make sense to me after getting into swordsmanship and martial arts in general. The books. They did, though, Tempest. Lord of the Rings Virgin. I still don't get the virgin thing, armored sweatpants. Though that's probably my Asperger's kicking in. But in any case, I know this is a talking talk now. Yeah, we went from comparing sword grips to talking about Lord of the Rings. But this brings me back to the whole thing with the tree people. If they made up the majority of the forest, you would think that they would have started noticing, hey, old Oaky Bob is missing, so's Prunester and Pine Door. Like, where are these guys at? They didn't show up for our local SAP meeting. They're like, oh shit, a goblin army's cutting down the forest that our best friends are made of, that literally our best friends are comprised of. How did we not notice this? We must go to war. I feel like the tree people would have started noticing their friends and their comrades getting turned into firewood a lot sooner than we see Treebeard and the hobbits actually noticing the hobbits were the ones who told Treebeard and convinced him to go take a look in the first place. But I do feel like the tree people would have already figured this out. Okay? I don't know, what do you all think? Like, if you were a tree person and you suddenly see, like, the forest, like, the edge of the forest receding further and further back, would you be just like, just a normal day, or there's some shit wrong here, I need to investigate? Because if I was one of those tree people and I started seeing that, oh shit, like 90% of our cousins are gone, like what the fuck is happening? I don't think trees that got cut down were necessarily tree ends. Also, they said they don't do much or move very often. Sadly, it was a trust thing, and Saruman abused that trust. Okay, yeah. It's a trust thing. Saruman was supposed to protect the forest. But still, you would think that there would have been that one odd tree person that would have moved around more than the others, or like would have seen the devastation that was taking place. Especially if they're supposed to be like the residents of the forest and almost like pseudo guardians. I'm just saying it doesn't make complete sense that so much of the forest was destroyed and they didn't know about it. A wizard should know better. That's true. Armored sweatpants, that's very true. But that's my whole thing. Like, that's one of the very few parts of Lord of the Rings that I just don't get. That they should have known beforehand, even if it was a trust thing. But I feel like there would have been at least one of them that would have noticed this shit. Or if they could talk to the woodland creatures, like a squirrel just climbs up Treebeard and starts shouting in his ear, yo bro, They cut down the forest in droves. They're bringing out the axe clockies. He didn't broadcast to everyone he was going to stab them in the back. That scene was so sad. And I know that, Tempest. But I'm just saying something of that scale. I feel like one of them would have noticed. That's all I'm saying. The other thing is, one of my favorite scenes, aside from when Gimli says, "I'll let no long ear beat me," is that when the battle is over and Legolas just comes in all cocky, like, "I killed 42. And he's like, 42? That's very impressive. I myself am sitting on 43. And Legolas just shoots the arrow into him, and he's like, 43. He's like, "He is already dead. He was twitching. That's because he's got my axe embedded in his central nervous system." Gimli's just a goat. Right? In the movie show. And I know, put that past the book to go into far greater detail than the movies did. But yeah. So, while we are on the subject of Tolkien and fantasy in general, yeah, being betrayed sucks, and betrayal never comes from your enemies. I mean, you can't. Tempest isn't lying. Your enemies can't betray you. They're your enemies. But yeah, while we are on the subject of fantasy and Tolkien in general, what are your thoughts about this new D&D movie that they're making, or has it already been released to theaters? Through that. I mean, I watched the original first two D&D movies from the 80s. Didn't really pay attention to them. Didn't really grab my attention. This new one, it looks like it could be something, but personally, after watching Vox Machina, that D&D inspired Amazon series, I gotta say, Vox Machina just has this new movie beat, in my opinion. Overall, it was cute. My daughter likes it, and she plays. I was gonna say, Armor Sweatpants' daughter is like, "Your party is being attacked by giant wolf dog things. What are you going to do?" She rolls a +4 charm potion and turns them into oversized pit bull puppies. But have they already released that on DVD, or is it still just in theaters? The new D&D movie. Vox Machina, gotta watch that eventually. You sure, Tempest? It's fucking great, especially the first season. The second season, I won't give any spoilers, but the second season delves into the backstories of the characters more than the first season. So we get more backstories on the characters in the second than we do in the first. Theater. Thanks, Tempest. I gotta go watch that at some point. Maybe I'll go with Outlaw Night sometime, or with Geekopedia. More than likely with Geekopedia. But with that in mind, I have never actually played D&D, but I do want to. It's just that no one around me has the time. My friends just recently dropped D&D. Oh, that's sad, Tempest. I was going to say, there's one thing I'll never drop, and that's Yu-Gi-Oh! Okay? Yu-Gi-Oh's my shit. Right? My boy Joey Wheeler, Red Eyes Black Dragon. Gotta rep the OG, even with modern support. But therein lies the thing. I never played D&D. I do actually want to. It's just no one around me has the equipment to play it, or the time to play it. The reason I like Vox Machina so much is that it kind of made me feel like this is what like D&D should be like in your mind. I got a critical with my Vorpal sword, and it only took 12 campaigns for me to get one. I'm going to assume this Vorpal sword thing is an extremely rare item that you just can't buy at your local weapon shop. I never got to critical. Like I was saying, I'm going to assume this is something you can this ain't just something you can pick up at your local weapon shop and just equip to your character. This is something you'll either have to gather materials for or find like a special craftsman, I assume. Alright. Okay. But with that in mind, there is one thing that I will tell you about Vox Machina, and that is one of the characters wields a vampiric sword. I won't reveal who wields it, but I played for 15 years, was disappointed with 3rd edition, not to mention D&D turned into vampires and werewolves. It turned into fucking Twilight? Oh my god. So dice, I never got roll those dice. Tempest, I think you've been correcting me so much you've ran out of corrections for yourself. But in any case, what was I saying? I actually completely forgot what the hell I was saying. Oh yeah, Vox Machina. So one of the characters, won't reveal who, wields a vampiric sword, meaning when it cuts you, it drains the opponent of all its blood, and the opponent's strength basically becomes yours. 3.5 good to me, 4th was shit, and 5th was okay. But in any case, the vampiric sword in Vox Machina, when it cuts you, it sucks all your blood and drains you of all your power and strength and gives it to the wielder. Outlaw, if you would like to play, you should contact my daughter. She'll get you a game. I was going to say, thanks, Robert Sweatpants. Might do that at some point. Vox Machina is nothing like D&D IRL, especially with certain parties. Yeah, I know. It's not so much IRL. It's more like when you play and you're in that fantasy world. That's what I kind of would view like D&D as being like. Like it takes your imagination and animates it to something you can see and interact with. Just letting you know. Okay, that's what I was kind of saying. That's what I imagine D&D being like in my head is basically what Vox Machina betrays. But this vampiric sword has got me kind of. It became my favorite weapon, honestly, because it would even turn on its wielder, meaning that it was a cursed blade. And one of the characters defeats the original owner of this sword and takes it, and slowly begins to feed the sword more and more blood, and the sword starts to take control of him. And only after he fights off the sword's control and shatters it does he kind of go through his like life-changing alterational journey or whatever. But just the concept of a vampiric sword that steals your opponent's strength and makes it yours, that's actually kind of an OP weapon if you think about it, because if you were to slay a bunch of weak scrubs, even though they don't have a lot of strength initially, you would just keep building your strength proportional to what you defeat. I mean, the game, for 10 years, I tried to get my team to be organized, and they just would not have it. You can't control everything in the game, Tempest. But yeah, just the thought of this sword, like if I was to kill like 10 level 1s and each of their attack stats were like 50, I would have increased my attack stat by 500 just by doing that. So you gotta think that vampiric sword, it's an OP weapon if you can control it. And I feel like in the hands of a more competent swordsman in the Vox Machina universe, the sword would have been like reined in more than what the character. He's one of the members of the group of Vox Machina could do. Now, personally, I'd like to think I would have been able to keep the sword in check, like a kind of a battle of wills thing. I know a lot of you guys would have been able to do it no problem. Especially you, Tempest or Gargoyle. Weapons typically don't get that OP in game. They try to avoid making people a one-man army, but makes the rest of the party useless. Yeah, but just think for a moment. If we were to take that sword from Vox Machina and transfer it into the real world and give it to a medieval swordsman, just how powerful would it make a regular human? Because you would literally, depending on how many you've cut down, you could easily multiply your strength literally times 100 men. Sounds like the sword of Venka from 3.5. I wouldn't know, honestly. I never played D&D, like I said. But if you were to take that sword from Vox Machina and give it to someone in real life, then that would mean that just by cutting down one opponent, you've already initially doubled your strength. Cutting down 2 would quadruple your strength, and so on and so forth. You could basically have almost infinite amount of strength just by cutting down a few opponents. And that also means that you absorb the opponent's skill level, you would basically gain their skills on top of your own without actually having to learn or train. So such a weapon would be pretty much damn near impossible to defeat. But yeah. So with that in mind, I have work tomorrow, and I gotta clean all this shit up and put it back. So I believe I will be calling it here for tonight. I know I have stayed on as long as I normally do. Shang Shu from Mortal Kombat. Nice. But in any case, my noble band of outlaws, Outlaw Samurai tells all y'all, be crazy rednecks, be safe, use your weapons, and next week we will be returning to our regularly scheduled time of Monday at 8:30. Right? This was fun. Thank you, Armored Sweatpants. I'm out. Peace.